I can't imagine that this guy is looking forward to media days. And I'm not talking about the Rod Favre. I'm talking about the Michigan head coach, Jim Harbaugh, because there is a lot there to talk about. He not only has to deal with his football team's disappointments, he has to possibly answer questions or dodge questions or just make the statement that I'm not going to address that from 45 years ago.
Well, yeah, I think the Bo and the doctor thing, I mean, he can share his own personal recollections, I suppose, one time and say, these were my interactions. This is what I know. And make sure, I think, for his own benefit, that he's very consistent if he does go down that road with what he says about that, because you don't want there to be any inconsistencies beyond the fact that he works for the university today. He obviously has no culpability in something that happened 40 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever the dates were alleged. But if he does decide to go down that road, he needs to make sure that he has a consistent explanation of his recollections of what happened and just leave it at that. I mean, that is not what I would expect him to spend a whole lot of time talking about at this event. And in fact, if he even goes down that road, it would be a surprise to me, other than just a quick blanket absolution of Bo Schembechler, his idol and his mentor. So to me, I can't imagine he's going to spend much time on that. But if he does, that's probably how he should handle it. I think with Jim Harbaugh, there are any number of questions. They renegotiated your contract. Why? You were 2-4 last year. Why? Have you decided to finally try? Why or why not? What's happened to your recruiting? Why? What happened to your offense? Why? We thought you were the quarterback whisperer. Why not? Just on and on and on and on. Why haven't you put in a quarterback in the NFL yet? Why not? And on and on and on, because he's got 15 or 20 questions that are legitimate questions, and he won't even try to answer any of them. You know that going in. He's just going to give you that blank stare and a 6-word answer that, yeah, we're just going to do everything we can, or we're just going to try as hard as we can, and that's all we can do. Just I don't know. I don't know. It speaks volumes that they're picked 4th in the media preseason poll in the Eastern Division. That's as low as they've ever been picked, probably in the history of the sport, in that, in the Big Ten or in a division. And then secondly, they're not in their traditional position at number 15 in the preseason polls. Some of the magazines don't even have them in the top 25, and Phil Steele had them clear down around number 60. So that'll tell you what people really believe of the bang-up job he's done. Everybody who's on that roster was brought there by him. He's in his 6th or 7th year now, 7th year. So everybody who was brought there by him. So he's got a lot of questions to answer on how he's driven this thing directly in the ground, and Rich Rodriguez like. So I don't know. He's gonna have his hands full, I think, with this, but I wouldn't look for him to get any answers out of him.
Yeah, I think Steve has hit upon a lot of the points of where they're at right now, and where Jim Harbaugh is in terms of maybe being a little aloof to questions and criticisms and things along those natures, and that Michigan certainly isn't being well thought of in terms of the national rankings. And I had an opportunity to break bread with several writers over the weekend, and we talked about Michigan, and just went through. It's like, who are the stars on this team? Where would the shock come from? Where would they be able to overperform based on what it is that we think that we're all looking at? And while we're able to name a couple of nice players, I don't think that we were really able to sit there and say, well, they're really dug in on a system that seems to be working. Oh, they've got longtime position coaches. Oh, they've got a philosophy that seems to be working. Oh, that they've got a coach that isn't like one of the oddest cats that I've ever seen in my life. That's all part of the situation. And I don't know. There's just sometimes a point where you kind of know what's coming, and while you're hoping for the best, you kind of are bracing for impact. And I think there are a lot of people in Ann Arbor that are bracing for impact right now, because I don't know. I picked, a couple weeks ago, last week, 2 weeks ago, I went and did my brackets of how I saw the East and West going, and I had Michigan fourth. Maybe they could win another game that I'm not expecting, but they very easily could lose 2 games that I'm expecting them to win. I mean, it's a middling crapshoot for them. This is not a team that I see going off there and shocking the world and going 10-2. We're going to know very quickly against Washington what this team is made of. And truthfully speaking, I don't think a lot of people think a whole lot about the Pac-12. They could go and beat the Huskies, and then they could still go and get boat raced in the Big Ten. So, it's certainly going to be a difficult situation. And I don't think that Jim Harbaugh is really looking forward to the national media, to the Ohio State media, maybe to a couple of other programs, to come in and ask him questions that have not been scrubbed and sanitized, because that's the price of doing business up north in terms of having any sort of access to Schembechler Hall. So I'm expecting a really awkward media exchange, and I'm really expecting there to be somebody in there playing gatekeeper who might sit there and interject and keep tough questions from really getting all the way to Jim Harbaugh, because he doesn't have a lot to bank on right now. And if he comes out there and pulls a D- performance at Big Ten Media Days, it's just going to add to the tremendous weight that's on him right now.
Way back when, I had to stop watching The Office because it made me cringe and I just wasn't enjoying it. That's what this is going to be when Jim Harbaugh's up at the front podium. It's just going to be uncomfortable and cringing because he doesn't, doesn't respond well to criticism. And right now, every question that he's going to get asked is going to be laced with some sort of criticism. And so it'll be interesting to see how he handles that, knowing how he's always handled it in the past. Maybe he changes, and maybe this is a new Jim Harbaugh. I don't think we have any indication that will be the case or can be the case. And I remember a few years back, I tried talking to him when he was off, because they do the podium, and then a little bit later in the day, they do their 1 hour session at a table, and you could just walk up and go ask questions. And, I stood there for a few minutes, and it's not a productive question and answer session with him. It's a question, and maybe there's an answer, or maybe it's, there's some contentiousness there, and it's short, and you don't learn anything from talking to him. And that was when they were still doing okay. And so I have no idea what he's going to be like now, where, everybody's going to be like, well, how is this doing? Your defensive line's not deep, but is it going to be okay? And like everything is just got this negativity to it in terms of people wanting to know about his team. So I assume I don't know if I'll ask him anything, just because it could just be not a productive attempt, but I may stop by and listen to what he has to say at times. But it's really, I don't want to rubberneck that whole situation. And that kind of feels like what you're doing. And just, you're driving by and you're looking at the white sheet being put over his head. And it's, that's not my scene, man.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things about it is he works himself into these situations where people are asking him tough questions, and then he tries to do this half-assed deflection, well, Urban Meyer, everywhere he's ever been, there's drama or something. You couldn't beat Urban Meyer on your best day, bud. Recruiting, football, tiddlywinks, and you're trying to impugn the reputation of Urban Meyer. It's like he's just flailing at something to grasp a hold of, and throws that out there 2 or 3 years ago in the midst of that Zach Smith situation or whatever that was. And it's just no, bro, you ain't getting it. You have no credibility to stand on to talk about anybody else, because you don't win football games. You don't win important football games. You haven't won important football games since you were the coach at Stanford or the 49ers. So, You have nothing to stand on. You have no credibility.